Hi viewers, I'm Purple Celery. Thanks for joining me today. Hope that everybody is having a brilliant Easter weekend. Today I'm going to be reviewing Lux, which is episode 2 of season 2/series 15 of Doctor Who, and there will be spoilers. So this was a strange episode, and one that I think will be quite divisive. I imagine that some people are going to say that this is it, Doctor Who has jumped the shark, Russell T Davies has gone completely bonkers, etc, etc. But there'll be others who I think will say this episode is brilliant, clever, funny, etc, etc. I veer more towards the latter camp. This episode wasn't perfect, and I will get into that later on in the review, but it was pretty good. The opening scene gives us some nice foreshadowing. We're in a cinema in 1952 and it's showing a newsreel of the British nuclear testing, which kind of, I guess, foreshadows the potential doom which is about to befall the poor 15 patrons who are watching it. As a historical side note, in the 1950s, the British government did conduct a series of nuclear tests in Australia, most famously at Maralinga. Long story short, the fallout, and no pun intended, wasn't particularly great. There was impact on our Indigenous people. The cleanup took a very, very long time, and the area is still off limits to the public today. Fun fact, because this is set in 1952, and I did look this up, the testing that was shown on the cinema screen would have taken place on the Montebello Islands, which are just off the coast of Western Australia. So, history lesson aside, we then see the villain of the episode, Mr. Ringadin. I thought he was a great villain. He was scary and funny and properly menacing. Given that Doctor Who is now partly funded by Disney, it's about time that we got an episode which blends animation with real-life action. I enjoyed the scenes where the Doctor and Belinda first arrive in 1952 Miami. We see the cinema advertising a movie starring Rock Hudson. Now, I suspect that a certain segment of the fans might say, oh yeah, Rock Hudson, look at Doctor Who just shoehorning in yet another discussion about, you know, a gay icon. But I think that that was actually quite a clever move by Russell T Davies. It served a couple of purposes. Namely, we could see the impact that it had on Belinda, our companion. We see that she's realising fully that, you know, they're in the past, and yet she knows what's going to happen to Rock Hudson. And it's both in some ways a privilege and a burden. And then, of course, at the end, when some of the letters are knocked off the advertising, whatever you call it, the screen out the front, we see the word harbinger, which is a callback to the Devil's Cord. Incidentally, and again I did look this up, the movie that Rock Hudson was starring in was called The Harvest Bringer, which was actually a totally made-up movie just for this episode. But it also ties in nicely because in some ways the death of Rock Hudson in the 80s was a harbinger of change because it did raise awareness of AIDS and the need for more funding and research into the disease. The scene in the diner where the Doctor and Belinda talked to Tommy Lee's mum was also interesting. I liked how it didn't shy away from the realities of 1952 Miami, the fact that segregation was still very much in force. One of my main gripes with the Chibnall era was that he didn't really lean very much into the fact that the Doctor was a woman. Like, apart from maybe the Witchfinders episode, he didn't really explore the potential limitations that the Doctor may have faced as a woman being back in time. But I did like how the Doctor and Belinda in this episode did have to navigate the realities of being black in a segregated society. The second act sees the Doctor and Belinda turned into animations. When the Doctor says, "We've been framed," I thought that was a nice shout out to the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which is also a film that blends animation with real life action. Now, the scene that I suspect will be the most divisive is the one where the Doctor and Belinda emerge from a TV into the living room of 3 die-hard Doctor Who fans. It's quite meta, and I think that in that scene, Russell T Davies was having a bit of a sly dig at the fandom here. I liked how the three fans all insisted that Blink was their favourite episode. Again, that served a dual purpose. Firstly, because obviously Blink is an absolutely brilliant episode, but secondly, because we had the sad reveal, or rather the fans themselves made the sad reveal that they know that they're just fictional characters, and that when the Doctor and Belinda leave, they will in effect blink out of existence. So I guess in that respect, it was their favourite episode because they could very much empathise with it. I thought that something was up when the soundtrack began playing over that scene. It was a mashup of some of Murray Gold, the composers, some of Murray Gold's notable songs that he composed back in the noughties and the 2010s. So when that, mashup montage began playing, yeah, I thought that something was up. Now, I suspect that this scene will be divisive because I feel like there probably will be a subset of fans who think that in show there should never be any suggestion that Doctor Who is in fact just a show. The ending was good. I thought that Mr. Ring-a-Ding was genuinely terrifying when he began transforming into a real-life person. It was a little bit predictable when Mr. Pye burnt the celluloid at the end, and I do query whether the burning celluloid would have caused an explosion big enough to knock a hole through the wall. Again, the fans at the end, if you kept on watching through the credits, did say, hey, the ending was quite predictable, so that did give me a bit of a laugh. I'm still enjoying Belinda as the companion. Again, we saw the show lean into the fact that she is in fact a nurse when the Doctor injured his hand and she wanted to try and heal it. I'm also liking the fact that she's getting to know the Doctor better, that she's getting to trust the Doctor. Speaking of which, I don't think that we saw the Doctor cry in this episode, but Mr. Ring-a-Ding did, and I wonder if that's because he'd absorbed a lot of the Doctor's energy. As I said at the start of this review, the episode wasn't perfect. In particular, it was very obvious that the American characters were being played by British actors because the accents were clearly fake, and in that respect it was quite jarring. Also, when we see Tommy Lee at the end, I thought that his hair was a bit longer than what a teenage boy of that era would have. He'd surely have a short back and sides to go with those, thick Buddy Holly style glasses. So yeah, I thought that his hairstyle was a little bit longer than it should have been. But again, that is a super minor nitpick. I also think at this point Mrs. Flood is becoming a bit of a tease. She just pops up randomly in every episode, says something mysterious and then just goes away again. So I just feel, come on Russell T Davies, just give us the reveal already. But overall, I enjoyed this episode. I thought it was fun, I thought it was clever, it had some genuinely interesting twists to it, had some decent commentary on the writing process for the scripts, some interesting commentary on the fandom. It was nice to see that the three fans did in fact survive. That was, I guess, a nod that, hey, ultimately Doctor Who is just a show. So I would probably give this episode a solid 8 out of 10. But, as always, these are just my views. What did you guys think about the episode? I would love to hear what you thought about Lux, so please leave your comments in the comment section below. Please give this video a like if you've enjoyed it, and feel free to subscribe to my channel. And I will see everybody next week in time for episode 3. So until then, take care, enjoy the rest of your Easter weekend, and I'll see everyone next time.